What is up, YouTube? It is your boy NMR Sports, and we are back here with another video. We're going to be talking about some off-season grades so far for this off-season, since a lot of these free agents still haven't signed yet, like Trevor Bauer and JT Realmuto at the time of making this video. We're going to go over some of the teams who have great off-seasons and some teams who haven't had great off-seasons. Now, before we get into the video, if you want to follow me on other social medias, I have a Twitter and Instagram, NMR Sports 30. They will be in the description. I just started a podcast with a few buddies. If you want to listen to a few more of my hot takes there, they're about an hour long, so if you want to take some NMR Sports to go, that's a good place to do that. That'll be in the description as well. I also have a Twitch where I stream pretty frequently throughout the week. We play MLB The Show and talk about baseball while I stream. Also got a Discord where you can throw some of your hot takes and cold takes in there. So, yeah, check all those links out in the description. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are 5 subscribers away from 200. And be sure to like the video if you enjoy it to help it reach a few more people. Now, with that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Now, the object of today's video is to go over some of the teams that have made most of the noise this offseason. Obviously, we're not going to talk about teams like the Cardinals who haven't made any moves at all. Sorry to pick on the Cardinals, but there's a team that's a good example of a team that hasn't really made any moves this offseason. We're going to go over teams more like the San Diego Padres, the White Sox, teams like that who have made a lot of noise this offseason. Give them grades, see if they met the needs that they needed to fill this offseason or if they're looking to get a little bit more. Obviously, it's not over yet, so some of these teams could turn these grades around, but it's a good idea. Just get a good idea where all these teams are at right now. Now, let's start with a team that hasn't really made any noise as of late, and that is the Atlanta Braves. Now, I'm going to be giving the Atlanta Braves a C+ because they have made some moves, but they still have a lot of holes to fill. I can't really be confident in giving them a B grade. The Atlanta Braves, the biggest needs they have right now are a third baseman and probably a left fielder, maybe even another outfielder, especially if they're going to have a DH next year. They're going to need to fill that hole as well. They really don't have a good third baseman right now. Obviously, Austin Riley's kind of a prospect who hasn't come up and made a lot of noise yet. Same thing in the outfield. Christian Pache is probably going to be their starting either center fielder or right fielder if they can get a good left fielder out there. Maybe just re-sign Marcell Ozuna. So the notables moves they have made so far, of course, are Charlie Morton and Drew Smyly. So they have a pretty good rotation, especially if Mike Soroka is able to come back at some point next year, having Max Fried, Ian Anderson, Mike Soroka, Charlie Morton, and Drew Smyly. That is not a bad rotation. They have a solid bullpen with Will Smith probably being the anchor out there. They probably need to make a few more moves in the bullpen as well, but definitely the most notably would be getting a third baseman and a left fielder. So for now, we're going to give them a C+ and see what they can do the rest of the offseason. Now let's hop into another team that I'm giving a C+ grade to, and that is the Boston Red Sox. Now the Boston Red Sox have made some noise lately with signing Enrique Hernandez and Garrett Richards in back-to-back days. They also earlier this offseason signed Hunter Renfroe to a deal. So they have a pretty solid lineup going into 2021, and they're going to have a pretty good rotation with Chris Sale and Eduardo Rodriguez coming back, as well as Garrett Richards, Nathan Eovaldi. The main problem I'm seeing with them next year is going to be their bullpen. I'm really worried about that bullpen next year. And there's a lot of good bullpen arms available, so if they're able to sign a couple of those or maybe trade for one, I could really see the Red Sox actually being a surprise contender in the AL East next year. They have a very solid lineup with Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez if he's back to form next year. Of course, Alex Verdugo is known as one of the most underrated players in MLB. He might be so underrated he's overrated. Christian Vasquez, a catcher. They just have a lot of guys who are going to be playing well for them next year. So definitely watch out for the Red Sox to be a sneaky team, maybe make a wild card spot next year, especially if they can make some more moves and better that bullpen. Now let's hop in and talk about the 2019 World Series champion Washington Nationals. Now the Washington Nationals have made some good moves this offseason. I'm actually going to give them a B+ for now. The Washington Nationals, of course, have been known for their pitching for the last few years. But their hitting was really bad last year. Obviously, they have good guys like Juan Soto and Trey Turner probably anchoring that lineup next year. But they made some good moves, in my opinion, adding Kyle Schwarber and Josh Bell to the roster as well. Now, both of these guys had down years in 2020 and haven't been amazing, especially in the batting average department. But they are big power bats, and that's pretty much what that lineup was lacking last year. They have a lot of guys who are going to get hits, but nobody who is really scary or would scare you with the bat. So with a little bit more protection in that lineup, first of all, Juan Soto is probably going to win the MVP, and Josh Bell probably will have a better chance to flourish than he had in Pittsburgh, where he was the only guy who really had any pop in that lineup. So I really like these signings of Josh Bell and Kyle Schwarber. They also signed John Lester, who's not going to really make that much of an impact on their starting lineup. Starting rotation, I should say, but he could eat up a few innings, and a nice guy to have around, a good veteran clubhouse presence for them. So yeah, the Nationals, B+. If they go out and sign a guy like JT Realmuto, I'll probably give them an A+. That's really the only thing I could see them doing. They could also use a third baseman, so maybe if they go out and trade for a guy like Chris Bryant or Nolan Arenado, that'd be a good look for the Washington Nationals as well. But for now, B+. I think they probably are wild card contenders next year, maybe. With these moves, if they make a few more, they could actually contend for the NL East. That's probably a little hot take for you guys, but I honestly think they could contend for the NL East if they make a few more moves. The Chicago Cubs, I almost didn't include you guys in this video just because I wanted to come out and say you guys get a D-. You legitimately have done nothing to add to your team. All you did was trade Yu Darvish away, and it sounds like you're thinking about trading Chris Bryant. I really don't know. Wilson Contreras has also been on the shopping block, maybe even Kyle Hendricks. You have such a good core group of guys. I don't know. It sucks. Sorry, Cubs fans. D-. Now, the next team we're going to hop in and talk about is the New York Yankees. Now, the New York Yankees, I'm actually going to give you guys a B+. You haven't made a lot of moves that are noteworthy, in my opinion, but signing DJ LeMahieu, re-signing DJ LeMahieu, I should say, and then signing Corey Kluber, both really good moves, in my opinion. Obviously, it's not the quantity that Yankees fans would have liked, but I do think those are very quality moves that are going to make you guys better in 2021. You could probably use one more good starter if you really want, but even the current core you have now, if you don't make any more moves this offseason, you're definitely a playoff team, probably going to win the AL East unless the Blue Jays go out and do something crazy. So yeah, B+ just from not quantity, but quality of the moves you guys have made. Now, sticking in New York, let's talk about the New York Mets. Now, the New York Mets, I'm going to give it a solid A to. I'm not going to give them quite an A+ yet, which might be a little bit surprising. I do think they need to add a little bit more if they want to be the NL East favorites next year. Now, of course, they went out and made a huge trade for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, as well as signing free agent catcher James McCann, who most people think is overrated, but some people think is underrated. He's kind of a wild card for him next year. I think these moves indicate that they're going to go out and sign somebody else. I don't know if that is Trevor Bauer. Me as an Angels fan, I hope they don't sign Trevor Bauer. Definitely a possibility. They've been in on free agents Brad Hand, probably looking at some of those other those other bullpen arms that are out there like Jake Diekman, things like that. I think they could still use one more bat. Brantley and Springer were probably two really good options for them, but both of them are off the board now, so I don't know if they're going to go after a guy like Jock Peterson maybe, sign him as your left fielder, but of course Dom Smith could play left field for them, and they have a really good lineup already, so maybe that one last starting pitcher could help them propel them over the top. But I'm going to give them an A for now, not quite an A+, just because I think they are missing maybe one more little spice to add to the mix before they can get to be World Series contenders, in my opinion. Now, I do want to add, they don't really necessarily have to go after an outfielder. They could always go after a third baseman, like a guy like Chris Bryant, maybe a Nolan Arenado. I don't really think they have the money to sign a guy or trade for a guy like Nolan Arenado right now, but Chris Bryant definitely seems to be in their price range and a kind of guy that you'd want on the squad there. You know, they could always do like trade JD Davis, kind of like what they did with the Francisco Lindor trade, trading Ahmed Rosario and Andres Gimenez for Francisco Lindor. So kind of do a swap, give maybe the Cubs could take JD Davis in exchange for Chris Bryant, and then obviously throw a few prospects in there or cash. Obviously, the Cubs are kind of looking to offload some salary right now, so that'd be a pretty good idea for the New York Mets if that's what they're going for. But knowing me as an Angels fan, they're going to ruin my hopes and dreams and sign Trevor Bauer instead. So we'll just have to see. I'm sure they have at least one move left in store for us, but for now, I'm going to give them a solid A. All right, let's talk about my Angels. The Angels have had a weird offseason, to say the least. I'm going to give them a solid B. Just because it hasn't been great, it hasn't been awful. It's kind of weird. Of course, they started off with getting Jose Iglesias to be our shortstop next year. It's a good, it fills a need, and it's only like a $6 million price tag, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely not an expensive, and it's a one-year deal, so it's going to come off the books next year. It's not anything to scoff at there. They traded for Raisel Iglesias, which is going to be a really solid addition to our bullpen. I really like that move as well. I think he has like a $9 million price tag, something like that. We signed free agent Alex Claudio, who apparently has pretty good stats and could be a big bullpen arm for us next year. We haven't really had any good lefties in our bullpen in the last few years, so he could be a good, solid left-handed option there. Jose Quintana isn't awful. I don't really like that move, but, you know, it's not terrible. It's not Julio Teheran. I was wrong. It's not as bad. And also, Kurt Suzuki is a solid backup catcher. Now, we haven't really made any moves that'll wow you. I guess Raisel Iglesias would be the best move we've made this offseason. But, of course, they are in deep talks with a guy like Trevor Bauer. They could always go out and sign a Jock Peterson. We still need a right fielder. We need another starting pitcher and probably a few bullpen arms. So I would expect us to make at least those 3 moves, whether that's somebody mediocre like Yusmeiro Petit. Hopefully it's something better like Trevor Bauer, Jock Peterson, and Brad Hand. That would be my ideal situation. Knowing the Angels, they'll disappoint me though. So for now, we're going to give them a B. We'll see where they end up at the end. I'm sure I'll make another one of these videos once the whole offseason is concluded. Now let's stay over on the West Coast and talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now the Los Angeles Dodgers actually have one of my personal favorite off seasons in the MLB so far. They haven't made any flashy moves, nothing to go crazy about. They haven't signed any big name free agents, but they have gone after so much bullpen depth. I am super jealous as an Angels fan. These are some of the bullpen arms they've acquired so far. That is Brandon Morrow coming off an injury, Corey Knebel coming off an injury, Jimmy Nelson, James Pazos, who's actually been really good for the Rockies in the past, so he could definitely be a rehab project for them as well. Blake Trinan, they re-signed, and then Tommy Kahnle coming over from the Yankees. They have got some good-ass bullpen arms for them next year, and they already have some good guys like Brusdar Graterol, and of course Kenley Jansen is still a pretty solid guy for him out there. Definitely a team to look out for next year. Obviously, they already had a solid lineup. They didn't have to go after many of them. And they already have a very good rotation, even if they don't add another arm. But they have been actively searching for another starting rotation arm, as well as a third baseman they don't really have right now. But they could always bring Gavin Lux up, maybe move Corey Seager or somebody over to third base there. So definitely some options out there for the Dodgers, still left to come, but I really like how they've built this bullpen this offseason. I completely forgot to add this. The Dodgers get an A for their offseason grade so far. Now the Padres, that's pretty short and sweet. A++++++++++++. I probably won't even fit it on the screen. Blake Snell, Ha-Seong Kim, Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, you name it. They've had an amazing offseason. They have made themselves competitive with the Dodgers. Do I think they're better than the Dodgers yet? I'm not convinced yet, but they have definitely made it a question to be, definitely a question for the Dodgers to be concerned about. Dodgers fans are probably getting a little bit nervous as of now. So good for the Padres, probably the best offseason that any team has had so far. Now let's talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm actually going to give the Toronto Blue Jays an A-, with the addition of George Springer, Kirby Yates, and Tyler Chatwood recently. They definitely made a big splash into the free agency market right now. I do think they're missing a little bit more, which is why they don't get an A+, but they've made a lot better moves than my Angels have, so I got to give them credit for that. George Springer is a huge addition to this lineup. Kirby Yates is going to be a lockdown closer, in my opinion, and Tyler Chatwood's definitely going to eat some innings in that bullpen. I don't really think he's going to be in the rotation. Like I said, they're my favorites to sign Trevor Bauer, so I think they might have a few more moves up their sleeve, and they better if they want to contend with those Yankees next year. But Blue Jays, you're going to get an A-. Really good moves that I've seen from you guys lately. And last but certainly not least, one of my favorite teams going into next year, the Chicago White Sox. Now I'm going to give the Chicago White Sox an A on their free agency grade so far, their offseason grade so far, sorry. They've only had 2 acquisitions, and that's Liam Hendricks and, Lance Lynn. But that's definitely addressing what they needed last year. They definitely needed pitching. Pitching is what kept them out of a deep playoff run last year. They have a lot of good young arms there, like Michael Kopech, Garrett Crochet, all sorts of different guys in there. I'm a really big Jimmy Cordero fan as well. Cody Howard, you name it. I could go on and on all day about this team. But Liam Hendricks is definitely a big addition for them, and Lance Lynn is going to be good, a veteran presence in that rotation. He's had some pretty good years with the Texas Rangers the last few years. So I really like what the White Sox have done this offseason. I think they're probably still going to add maybe 1 or 2 more arms to either that bullpen or that starting rotation. So definitely look out for the White Sox. You get an A for your offseason so far. Now that is going to do it for us here today. If I didn't go over your team, I'm sorry. I just try to go over the teams that have done a lot of moves this offseason, or teams that have had some noteworthy moves. Thanks again so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. About 90% of my viewers come from people who aren't subscribed, so be sure to hit that sub button, drop a like on the video, help more people see it. We want to get this baseball conversation started. Hit me up in the comments if you think I did your team dirty, or you think another team deserved to be on this list. Thanks again so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.